So I just wanted to ask you, I have so many questions for you, and I'm sure the audience does as well. What inspired you to make this film? It's just such a beautiful film and so incredibly beautifully crafted. What was the inspiration?
Well, thank you for that. Hi, everyone. Yay. The story really begins actually with producer Patina Dalton, who is a natural history filmmaker in Sydney. And as a young girl, she had seen Valerie on the front cover of National Geographic with the shark hanging off her arm. And really, Valerie was an inspiration for Tina. And Tina says, it was Valerie's inspiration that probably steered her direction into natural history filmmaking, and she learned how to dive as soon as she was legally able to, and then had the good fortune to work with Valerie and Ron about 25 years ago on a 3-part series for National Geographic, in which she had her first exposure to the archive. But when she was sitting in the cinema about 3 years ago, watching a film about Jane Goodall, which was made with a huge amount of archive, telling a very pioneering story. It was then that Tina had this epiphany. Well, we've got our own Valerie Taylor in this part of the world, and why hasn't this idea come to me earlier? And tragically, Ron had passed away at that point, but she sought me out, and I have a background in a lot of archivally rich program making and history and social history and cultural stories and biographies, and then took it to Valerie, and Valerie said, "What took you so long?"
How wonderful. And did you have any idea that there was that kind of footage? Because that's just remarkable that you had access to so much beautiful footage.
Yes, the footage is completely extraordinary, and it's a great testament not only to Ron's technical facility in capturing that footage, because it's so hard for us to remember today in an age of digital technology. But you know, a lot of that early footage, they are breath hold, they are shooting on film, they have 12 slides in a camera, and they had to, you know, reload when they get up to the boat, wash everything off and reload. So it's a testament to his frugality in achieving the shots that they did, and also the way that he had preserved the film as well. So all the film that you see is remastered actually on a Blackmagic Cinetel. And I did know that there was a lot, but I didn't know how much. And I actually calculated at one point there was 5,000 hours of film footage. Wow. to work through. And in addition to the footage, I had access to Valerie's handwritten diaries, which extend back to the 1960s. So I began by reading her entire life in her own words, which was great because those were contemporary accounts from when she had actually been making these discoveries or having these adventures, not some retrospective look. So that gave me a real insight into her formation as an explorer and a pioneer, but also as an emergent, wise woman.
And what a daunting editing process that must have been as well. Just incredible. You know, so many of us think of sharks as predators, as we all understand, and with the film Jaws, and as dangerous. What do you think it was about Valerie that she was just so fearless? What do you think that was?
I wish I could tell you. She's just hardwired for adventure, and you know, she's asked that question herself, and she actually can't articulate what it is. I personally believe that polio was incredibly character forming for her. She knew that life was something to be seized, and had already, you know, stared down a fatal, potentially fatal illness. So I think she says that Ron and she were both very fond of the phrase calculated risk. And so while it may appear to be risky, because they had these first-hand encounters with sharks and in their spearfishing days had really, really understood the behavior of different fish and what sharks do around, humans and other marine animals, they just actually knew when a situation was dangerous or not. And so, when she's on the back of the boat on that platform, hand feeding the great white shark, she said, another shark would have taken me, but I knew that one was a friendly one. So she really zeroes into what a lot of people are only just cottoning on to now, which is that even within the different species, there are different personalities. And it's just those years of understanding and working in that environment that she understands those unique differences.
Just amazing. What did you learn from making the film?
I learned that COVID has some benefits because it means that you get to spend a little bit longer with your archive, and also that your 85-year-old contributor key subject isn't going to be able to be in your edit suite at the same time that you're making the film. So she herself thinks that she was thwarted from the process, which is always really delightful for Tina and I to hear. But I learned so much. I think one of the biggest takeaways is the idea that we've all had a part to play in the Anthropocene, and that we each as individuals can make changes that have a great outcome. Of course, we need the political will to create marine sanctuaries and national marine parks, but that actually in our own choices, we can also be mindful of just how vital a healthy ocean is, not just for moral and, reasons of ethical regard for other creatures, but for our own well-being.
Fantastic. Before I open it up to the audience, I just wanted to ask you what the screening in Sydney was like. Congratulations.
Thank you. We've had a weekend of opening in Australia. We had a screening on Saturday, which was a sold-out theatre, and Valerie was in the house and received 2 standing ovations. She's incredibly beloved and regarded and honoured. And then we had a screening yesterday as well in the eastern suburbs in Randwick at the Randwick Ritz, which is a beloved cinema for all the people who live in the area. And again, sold out screening, again, standing ovation. It's just been the most phenomenally euphoric response to the film. We couldn't have hoped or dreamt for anything more. And we opened nationally in Australia for a very short window between the 17th and the 20th of June. And I believe the film is playing also in Wellington as part of the Dock Edge Festival on the 23rd of June. And I am hoping to be in New Zealand that week, and very, very much hoping to be at that screening.
Fantastic. We hope you're going to be there. Can we open it up to questions? I can't really see where anybody is, but please go ahead if there's any questions. Yes, right here, front. Oh, I think a mic is coming to you.
Check. Hi, a fabulous film. Really, really well done. Thank you very much. I'm Kim, and I'm a filmmaker, a producer as well. And of course, one of the things that struck me immediately was the amount of footage that that would be extremely expensive. Was there a relationship with National Geographic that made that less expensive? How did you go about that?
No, not in the slightest, actually. The film was predominantly financed through distribution deals with Madman. and also with Dogwolf, who are based in the UK, and they're an international distributor. And of course, with the support of Screen Australia and the state agency Screen New South Wales. And Valerie, in fact, reinvested a lot of her footage, but we managed to use, and then subsequent to the film premiering at Sundance earlier this year, National Geographic have subsequently acquired the film, and it will be released on their Disney Plus platform this July, which is really, really exciting, because hopefully Valerie's story and her legacy will be, you know, worldwide and in millions of households, should people tune in. But we managed to use a lot of the material, particularly the Blue Water White Death and the Jaws footage, under the fair dealing, the terms of review and criticism, because we had obviously the key players talking about their experiences. And in fact, we were obviously intercutting Valerie's own footage, or rather Valerie and Ron's own footage, particularly with Jaws, with that dynamic intercut between the stuntman who wouldn't get in his cage and the shark that got tangled in the trace wire of the winch. So it was a gargantuan task of weeding our way through the footage, but a very vast proportion of that footage is the Taylor's own film library, and it's extraordinary.
It looks it. Yeah, that looks it. So congratulations again. Well done. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, we really enjoyed the film as well. It's nice to watch these films and say that's a great film, but the call to arms that they're supposed to induce, that's the big thing about these documentaries and movies. I don't know if you've tied in with Seaspiracy. I don't know if people know the movie Seaspiracy, on the back of Cowspiracy. I think that's, you know, in the times we're living in, I think it's really important to have a call to arms. I don't know if you have a website or a link into these other animal or natural sort of based films that are coming out at the moment, because they're so crucial to making people think about the way they live. And there's so much you can do, you know, following a plant-based diet, you know, changes you can make in your personal life and how you live your life. Just any comments on that would be really well received. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's a great question and a great summary of all of those impact and outreach goals. Yes, as part of the National Geographic and Disney acquisition, they will be rolling out their own campaign. And I mean, certainly if you want to do something right now, the bull shark dive that you see at the end of the film, the unbelievable images of those beautiful sharks in Fiji, they have really been hit hard by COVID. And something that's often discussed in the balance of working around conservation issues is what role can tourism and ecotourism play? Well, that particular shark dive is a really great example of that. And Dr. Sylvia Earle also talks about hope spots, whether they're community managed, whether they're politically driven, or whether they're in fact something else like an economic underpinning. And so that particular shark dive doesn't just sustain economically the Fijian village that own the reef, but it also nurtures them spiritually. And because the shark was always a totemic animal for that particular village. So, and they've suffered because there's been no tourism because of the pandemic. And yet they've been out feeding the sharks so that they will stay around the reef, and to also ward off other illegal fishing. So, you know, you can make a donation to My Fiji Shark, and that would be something. But yes, look out for the impact campaign that will be coming. And National Geographic obviously have a huge support of healthy oceans and ocean awareness. And Seaspiracy is a great reference as well. You know, the Netflix film, it's created conversations, and a lot of what this is about is also creating those conversations in order for people to then enact in their own areas.
Great. I think there was another question here. Yeah.
While you were working on the, how long were you working on the film for?
A long time. In total, we actually began the film with the footage in Fiji. That was actually the very first thing I filmed. And I had already seen the archival imagery of Valerie in Fiji in the 60s. And I remember on the first day of filming in Fiji, I was looking back at the rushes, the footage that night, and had seen a picture of Valerie, present day Valerie, on the boat, just looking out to the ocean. And I suddenly thought, oh my God. And I went to the archive and I found exactly that same image. And I put them up on the computer at the same time. And I thought, that's the film, actually, this interplay between this archival story and the present day reality. But from that time, that was the middle of 2019. So I filmed in Fiji, and then I filmed the interviews in North America. And then we had about 2 months of editing. And then we put the film into hiatus for a couple of reasons. My editor had gone off to do a drama. And also I wanted to do more filming with Valerie and in Australia. And then we resumed editing right at the moment that COVID hit. So we edited from about March or April last year through to around about August. So I think in total, probably something like 10 or 12 months was spent working on the film. But you're obviously thinking about it all the time. And, you know, here we are now still working on the film in some ways, but it's a privilege.
Integrating the past and present was just worked so beautifully. Really, really well done. Do we have any more questions? Yes, way at the back.
Hi, Sal. It's Greta. How are you?
Hi, Chris.
I had to ask you if you'd had the opportunity to go in with the sharks yourself.
Great question. Thanks for outing me. No, in short. I thought they really don't need a director down in the bull sharks with a bullhorn calling action. What am I going to do? And in fact, I knew that I needed to capture the scenes on the boat preparing to dive, and also obviously her reaction coming up. But Patina did go down to have the experience, and I have to tell you that Valerie has taken a real shine to Juliet, my 12-year-old daughter, and has promised to teach her how to dive. And so at some point we have a plan to go to Indonesia to swim and dive, and to teach Juliet how to dive, and for me to refresh my diving credentials, which are there but very rusty indeed.
Yeah, well done as well on the film.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Oh yeah, we have another question here. Great.
Hi, great film.
Thank you.
Just wanted to say, you know, we see newspaper reports, someone's been attacked by a shark, and there's sharks in the harbour. And so from a conservation point of view, what should we do?
Valerie is very fond of saying that the media has a lot to be responsible for in relation to the perception around sharks. And look, the truth is that, you know, we are hardwired to be afraid, because they can, the dangerous ones, can bite us, and those bites can be fatal. But, you know, we don't make headlines out of the people who are killed on our roads of a weekend. And there might be, in Australia anyway, you know, maybe 5 people who might be killed in any one weekend, through to motor vehicle accidents. And yet as soon as someone gets bitten by a shark, it is not only front page news, it's quite sensationalist headlines. So the first thing that Valerie will teach you is that it's not a shark attack, it's a shark bite. And I do think that, you know, the language around the bites is important. It's true that Australia, particularly this last 12 months, has seen an unprecedented number of negative interactions between sharks and humans all the way along the New South Wales coast. The numbers are higher than they've been in decades. And the reasons for that are unknown and complex in terms of the theories around that. But one of the theories is that there's just simply not enough food in the deep. And so they're coming closer and closer to shore, and there's more people in the water. But what role conservation has to play, it's swimming against the tide actually remains the great challenge as far as sharks are concerned. They're not as cuddly looking as chimpanzees, but Valerie will say they're much more interesting.
Fantastic. Yes, we have another question.
Yeah, g'day. Great film. Great to see Valerie Taylor on the screen again. I used to watch her when I was a much younger fella.
Right.
You brought up the Anthropocene, and I just wanted to say how lucky we are to have people like Valerie Taylor, and you mentioned Jane Goodall, who are living testaments. They're living history books. She's been diving on the Great Barrier Reef for almost as long as I've been alive, and I'm 65. Do you want to just sort of touch on that? Because she's documented all this stuff. I've heard her speak before and say what there used to be and what there is now. Can we just hear you sort of elaborate on that type of thing?
Certainly. There's a concept that's well known, which is really the shifting baselines concept, which is to say that, you know, what you see is what you imagine the environment to be. And you're absolutely right. In fact, I was having a conversation about this last night. There's probably only one other person in the world that I can think of who's not only experienced and witnessed that trajectory of change like Valerie, but has also been in front of the camera doing it. And that's David Attenborough, you know, who's what he is, 93. Valerie today is 86 and has been diving since the 50s. And so, as she will say, you know, what she says isn't what she's read in a book or researched on a computer. It is what she has herself seen and experienced through her own activity in the ocean. And so the wisdom and the knowledge that these very special people have in terms of the change, it's not only a privilege to document and share that knowledge, but we need to seek it out. And in fact, one of the things that's really interesting is the National Maritime Museum in Sydney, now known as the Sea Museum, has actually, Valerie has donated all her slides and photographs for them to look at and find secondary information in those slides. So while they might have been taking an image of a wobbegong shark, that what the scientists are able to do is to look at that image and look at the sponges or the kelp or whatever else is around that image and start to use that as a tracking mechanism. And the University of New South Wales are doing the same with their footage, using it as a way of exploring the secondary information that's held in those materials. So while they didn't in their career initially anyway set out to make these films and these documentaries and the stock footage and the slides, you know, they were making a living and they were trying to share their experience of the ocean with the wider public. While they didn't intend that material to be used for science, it has certainly along their lives been useful. She's participated in various scientific studies and is named, and you know, the mesh suit's a great example of disproving scientific theory and you know, creating new understanding. But even today, that historic footage is a vital part of the piece of the puzzle of trying to work out how long things take to you know, regenerate or not ever. And that's, really urgent work.
Do we have time for one more question? No, we're done. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sally. Wonderful to see you. Congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you, Francine. Thank you for hosting. Thanks everybody for coming to the film.